And we're live, ladies and gents. Welcome back. This is another Friday night live stream. This is when we get to unwind a little bit and talk about all the things that are happening around Canada, around the world. And this evening, we're going to be talking a little bit about British Columbia because it's something that's happening right at this moment, actually. There's the leadership race for the Conservative Party in British Columbia is on. It's hot. It's happening. And tomorrow is the deadline to actually join up with the Conservatives. So you'll be eligible to vote for that. So if you're looking to do that, now would be the time somewhere between now and 5 o'clock, I think it is Pacific time tomorrow. Maybe double check on that and don't take my word for it. Go on their website, find out for sure. And make sure you signed up if you want to vote in that election. But hey, let's bring on the chat. Come on in, folks. How's everybody doing? What is happening? I'd love to hear where it is that you're watching from. We got some guests tonight. This is going to be a lot of fun. Definitely got two guests. And we got a third who might be joining in. He was frantic on a phone call. He made a we're talking about a good friend of mine, Chris Erickson, who made an announcement he was going to endorse a candidate, and now everybody's freaking out because that's what happens. That's what happens when you make announcements. I don't know if I'm going to endorse anybody. Actually, I'm really bringing people on to have a discussion about this stuff so that people can make their own decision. Really, at the end of the day, that's up to you what you'd like to do. If you even don't even want to vote, that's up to you as well. But that's it. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Where are you all chatting from tonight? From Vaughan, Ontario. Awesome. That sounds awesome. Southside, Tennessee. Wicked. I guess you won't be voting in the British Columbia election. That's for sure. Hello from Nelson, BC. You might be. Hello from Georgia. Welcome. Which Georgia? The state of Georgia or the country Georgia? I'm guessing the state, but it could be the other. We never know. People are from all over the place. Sterling, Ontario. Welcome. Missouri. Power's out. What? Are you just watching on your phone? Is that how that's working? Okay. Well, wicked. Pincher Creek, Edmonton. Welcome, American neighbors. Winter Peg there. Is this? Oh, man. I feel bad for you guys way out in the prairies. It is probably still winter. Ugh. I couldn't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it enough here in the West Coast that I'm moving myself to Texas. I'm getting out of here for that. United States, Georgia. Good to see you. Edmonton, Alberta. Hey, from Brighton, Ontario. Toronto. Please send help. Yes. We've been trying to encourage some of that help. Who knows if it'll be coming? Who knows when or if? Yikes. Canada can't seem to take care of itself. And maybe that's the reason why we should be pulling one of these flags out. United Central is a great channel. Clyde, I don't know United Central. I'll have to check them out. Bad Storm, love your show. Okay, Bad Storm, that sucks. Actually, I love storms. Maybe not winter storms. I like those spring storms. I grew up in Ontario, and you get that southwestern Ontario, you get that lake effect, and it's fascinating to watch the storms roll in, and electrical storms especially. They're just really, really cool to watch. Yes, dangerous if you want to be somewhere safe when watching it, but everyone from southwestern Ontario probably knows exactly what I'm talking about. Naples Pool, where is that? Trump, please save us next. Yeah, so it looks like everyone who was predicting that the world war was going to happen this week, or that the Iran conflict was not going to end and it was going to continue going on and on and on and on and on and on. It looks like those predictions were wrong once again. People made bad predictions on what Trump was going to do and what would happen when Trump does the things that he does. And it looks like Strait of Hormuz opened up today, and it turns out that's not the biggest place where oil comes from anymore. It sounds like the United States of America has turned into a net exporter of oil. It looks like they might become a net exporter of oil for the first time since the World War. So that might be an interesting development. We'll see what happens with the world markets with that one. And if you have a wobbly pop, enjoy yourself. Get yourself in one of those. I got some chaser over here, but this brilliant whiskey is amazing stuff. Have a look at the Japanese. Just know how to make a whiskey. It's delicious. It's delicious. So we're gonna get into that. But I do want to get into some of these conversations. So to start things off, we got a few guests tonight, but to start things off, I want to bring a good friend of mine into the chat. He's you guys have probably seen him before if you've been around on the channel for some time. Pop the chat off just for a second, but don't worry. We're going to be chatting with you guys, so we're going to be paying attention to what's happening in the chat. But I do want to introduce him because now is probably the time to get in touch with someone like this with everything that's been going on in, well, currency and finances and economies. You might want to hedge your bets. You might actually want to hedge your bets. I've been hedging my bets. Absolutely. And, one of the best ways to do so, a lot of people talk about gold and talk about precious metals, but one of the ones that a lot of people don't talk about enough is the metal silver. That is a fantastic one. It's one of the reasons why I've gotten into it is because of the conversations that I've been having with my first guest tonight. And he's just an excellent lad and the gentle giant. Welcome to the show, Bryce Wade. How you doing, man?
Good, man. Well, thanks for the introduction, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been
Absolutely.
really good to see you.
Yeah, well, I wish it was under better circumstances. Here
Yeah.
we are in Canada, and well, people are really concerned. So here's one of the things, right? The biggest hedge that people have put into economies or whatever is a lot of people go into real estate, and that seemed to I always had felt like that was a great bet. But it seems like maybe not the best bet, and for a lot of reasons. I mean, I've been talking about a crashing market for some time, and
Yep.
that's
Me too.
I think that I still believe that that's going to come. But now we're looking at, if you're in British Columbia, you might not even own your land.
Yeah, that's a major development this year, and there's additional very significant things that are happening within real estate already that were before that even happened, right? So one of the major things is you got a baby boomer bust, right? So think back to the last like 20, 30 years, right? Back in Vancouver, so in North Vancouver, I used to do construction, so I saw this firsthand. Somebody bought a house that was $400,000 in like 2007, 2008, 2009, something like that, and they demolished it and made a McMansion and sold it for 4 million. So they got a 10x on that property by bulldozing it and and building something else. But who's going to spend $4 million on a mansion like that, right? And if you think about all the successful people that have been in Canada, all the super successful professionals and in tech and all these different disciplines, when they bought their properties, it was less. It was far less money, and now they've increased the price to the point where who is going to buy them if you're selling them, right? There's two sides of a transaction, right? So if the value of the property goes up over 10 years, and now it's doubled, let's say, or tripled in the case of Vancouver, well, who has the money to afford that? Like if rent is $2,000-3,000 a month, and a nice one of these big nice houses is $5,000 or $10,000 a month. Who has the money for that?
Well, that's it. And people just can't afford to purchase these properties anymore. And I mean, look at most of us. Most of us in British Columbia are packing up and getting ready to go because it's unfeasible. There's no way to afford this stuff. I was a renter for the longest time. I'm still a renter, but I lost the rental that I had for a long time because the landlord did the old bait and switcheroo, get you out of the place and then put it back on the market for 3 times the price. But then I'm on the market paying 3 times the price for anything, and it's unbelievable. I decided I'm going to take my family. We're going to go down to Texas. I mean, because what am I going to do? Move to another part of Canada and it's still just overinflated and way colder?
Yeah. Well, and this is the dilemma that a lot of people have been facing because of so for the last 10, 20 years, real estate has been skyrocketing in cost. And some people that already owned at that time made fantastic amounts of money. But now you're to the point where the economy isn't able to support the people to be able to maintain those properties. And something that's really interesting, George Gammon, who runs a YouTube channel here on YouTube, he did an analysis of what's happening in relation to what's happening right now with real estate and the economic indicators, and comparing that to what happened in 2008. And I'll just kind of briefly summarize this. You don't have to go watch the full video, but effectively, you have massive amounts of layoffs happening, which is what happened then. Because of that, people can't afford their mortgages because interest rates went up. They had to refinance. They had to now spend more money on on their mortgages, right? You have a massive increase in the price of oil, which also happened at that time. So there was inflation because of that. The cost of living, cost of everything else was going up at that time. And because of all of those things, if you can't afford your house, you have to start selling stuff. If you lose your job, which is usually your main asset, because that's what's bringing money into your portfolio instead of taking it out. Well, what do you
Mhm.
do next? You use your savings, because that's the most liquid thing, and that's what you've built up. You have capital stored up. But if you run out of savings, what do you do then? You start selling luxury items, stuff you don't need. Well, if you run out of stuff to sell that you don't need, you have stuff that you do need, which is basically your property. Your asset of last resort is typically your property. So if you get down to the point where you have to sell your property, well, that generally means there's a bunch of other people doing the same thing, and that
Mhm.
creates a lot of downward pressure. So this basically happens at the same time when a whole bunch of people need to sell to get the money out. But if you do sell, and or the bank seizes the property, well, they want to sell, so they jack down the price. So they got it for half price or whatever, so they can take half price on what it was worth a couple years ago, and now everything in the neighborhood is also worth half price that it was a couple years ago. So it's basically a downward spiral on the other side of an incline, right? So you pumped up all the way up here. Well, now all of these economic problems that we've been facing for years are finally starting to amalgamate all at the same time, and now there's a whole bunch of downward pressure on the other side.
Well, this is an inevitability, right? Like the '08 crisis hit, and Harper came in as the hero. Everyone wants to see Harper as this hero, but he jumped into deficit spending. That was his typical economic training that he got from university, where they studied John Maynard Keynes' theory of,
Yeah.
yeah, there's a time for deficit spending, and the conservative camp always says, like, that's the time when you need it. But what happened? How do you do the deficit spending? You have to lower interest rates at the Bank of Canada. That was Mark Carney who did that, and they lowered them for way too long, and they did exactly what led to the '08 crisis in the first place in the United States, right? Interest rates way too low, lowering lending standards, and getting people into real estate. And that's what Canada did. And they went absolutely nuts with it. And all this, we had TV shows and stuff, reality TV shows where people were like, I was at Homes on Homes. I had a bunch of them where,
Yeah.
knocking out load bearing walls to make a open concept, with your kitchen, all of that crap. Cause they thought, I'll buy a piece of property and I'll do a reno, and that'll make it worth $100,000 more next year. You didn't even have to reno these properties. That was just such a BS thing. You could have just sat on it and it went up because the frenzy was there. You didn't even have to do anything with it.
Bro, I had a friend back at that time. He bought a condo on Kingsway and Kingsway in like Fraser area, right? So like
Mhm.
in the middle of East Vancouver, $250,000 he paid for the condo. He put a new floor in for $10,000, did a coat of paint, and sold it for $400,000 1 year later. 100 like a what is that, 60% increase, 40% increase
It's just not.
in a
It's not
year? 1 year.
sustainable.
It's
It's not
insane.
sustainable.
No,
Yeah.
it's not. And now it's crashing.
And now it's crashing, and it's inevitable. But I think it'll turn into a currency crisis because
Uh,
I think the government's going to try to liquidate the debt.
Actually, there's a guy that you should talk to. I'll tell you off screen. But if anybody wants to sell their property, I know one of the most successful. As long as you're in the Lower Mainland, I met one of the really successful realtors, Bill Coughlin, and he told me some really really scary stuff, and it takes a lot to scare me, bro. But he effectively said something to that effect, because the government has backed up a lot of the loans that have gone out to back up mortgages, because that was happening with CMHC last year, the year before. So there's a lot of crazy stuff happening in our economy. This is one of them.
Well, so I got to point this out because this is big. This is a big addition to the scare of real estate crash. Is this new concept of indigenous rights on title land? And with that coming in effect, that just exacerbates things even further. And I just have to share. I have to share this clip because it's just way too funny. This is old Alex Zoltan on X. He says lawyer Thomas Isaac explains what Aboriginal title means, and ahead of that, it's this lady talking.
So folks are having a hard time understanding what Aboriginal title means, the breadth and depth of that. But when the Crown has underlying title to their fee simple property, which it does in the province of British Columbia, nobody bats an eye. So I think that we need to start looking at Aboriginal title in a different context, and we need to start thinking about reconciling that title rather than going to the extreme thinking process of displacement and all of the things that can trigger for folks.
Here's what
And just for people to get a little concept here, she wasn't just a white lady who showed up in garb to be at one with the natives. No, this is how you know she's native. Apparently, she's actually a chief, or at least a former chief of one of these tribes. Is unbelievable. Here she is. Here, reconciliation on hold as BC blocks Cowichan land win. This is Shanna Thomas, and she's the hereditary chief of Lackinson First Nation as part of the Cowichan Nation. You can tell because she's got a funny hat on. I mean, I guess that's the thing. And then a lawyer goes on to explain it.
And all of the things that can trigger for folks.
Here's what Aboriginal title is. It's an Aboriginal right. It's protected by the Constitution. Remember, everybody, that Canada voluntarily amended its Constitution in 1982. Nobody had a gun to our head. We did it to ourselves. We amended our Constitution. Aboriginal title is the exclusive right to land, even over and above the government.
Well, folks are having a hard time
That's insane. So, I mean, you bring that equation into the whole thing, and then you're like, okay, well, my house, the property might crash. But if it doesn't crash because of the poor economy and just the bad fundamentals, it might crash because everybody thinks, I'm not going to buy that. I can't get a loan on something that's not even mine when I buy it. What the hell? That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, and then this has been a major problem for anybody that doesn't know. There's been already a whole bunch of people that can't get mortgages, can't get insurance. There's been threats to throw people off of land. Like, this is absolutely throwing, a monkey wrench and a pipe wrench and every wrench in the toolbox into the gears of the economy. If you can't have some sort of certainty about what ownership is, nobody's going to invest in that. And there's the additional problem with this is that when capital sees uncertainty, it leaves, right? And if you remember last year sometime, Pierre was like, oh, we've already lost like half a trillion dollars. Well, we're well over $1 trillion of capital has left Canada, when this is like the time where we should be getting massive investment. We have unlimited amounts of resources, energy, mining, agriculture. We have so much that we could be doing here, and it's all being choked out from bad government policy, ridiculous activism, and the carbon tax, all these ridiculous policies that have been here for years, thanks to Gordo, who started that whole thing.
But yeah, here we are all these years later. I got a quick couple of super chats here from Construction Cronies for $10, given the USA. Big ol', is that a thumbs up? What is that? Anyway,
that's the gun show, bro.
Oh, that's the gun. Oh, I can't. Oh, okay. It's the yellow on yellow background. Okay, there's the gun show. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Bobby Cat with a $5 says, in 10 years, I'll have paid more property tax than I paid for my house and land. Hello, Clyde. Holy crap.
Isn't that insane?
That's nuts. And we have places like Florida right now who are abolishing property tax. And I've heard rumors that Governor Greg Abbott in Texas is going to do the same thing. Because Texans don't like to be one-upped on freedom, so it's like, yeah, no, okay, yeah, no, well, I guess we'll follow suit. Texas, incidentally, was a constitutional carry state after Florida as well, so that was another one of those. Okay, push it along. Let's get some more freedom here. Before you'd have to actually ask for permission from the government. Well, I say that because it's called a permit, so it's permission. You're asking for permission at that rate.
And that's really what the people in control have really figured out, is that you don't really have to, control people through the barrel of a gun. You just have to give a requirement that you talk to the government to do everything. Like, think about when Trudeau got elected in 2015. One of his big things was legalizing marijuana, right? Well, how did he do that? He basically said it so that you have to sell to the government from the growers, and then you have to buy from the government as a retailer. So they effectively control the entire supply chain. And if you miss your taxes or whatever, you get raked over the coals. Now they do like ridiculous nonsense, like irradiate marijuana and stuff. It's crazy.
I'm glad I don't smoke weed. Have a little communism in your marijuana. Like, what the hell, man? I'll never get it. But Canadians seem to constantly go in this direction when it comes to any industry. The government is really, really happy to seize the means of production. I mean, like,
that's literally what they're doing.
That's literally what they're doing. It's exactly it. So before we bring on the next guest, I want to give you a chance to give a little plug because I mean, I gave you a little plug at the beginning, but people didn't get exactly what we're getting into.
Sure.
The reason you and I know each other, well, through mutual friends, but you also help sponsor the channel. You've been an ongoing sponsor for this channel, and it's been fantastic, and I appreciate you so much. And I want to give you the opportunity to tell everybody what you guys do.
Yeah, so my name is Bryce Wade. I work with a company called New World Precious Metals. We're a gold and silver brokerage, and we basically help people back up their wealth with real money, which is gold. So JP Morgan is famous for saying that gold and silver are real money. Everything else is credit. And especially now with all of the craziness that's happening, gold and silver has been one of the best performing assets in the last 25 years, right? So if you put, $100,000 into gold at the beginning of the century, 25 years later, you'd have over $1 million. It's more than 10x from that time. Well, actually, more than 20x, because it was about $250 at the beginning of the century. Well, it's just under $5,000 US now. And with all of the other stuff that's happening around the world, central bank digital currencies, all of the other stuff happening, just like you were saying earlier, hedging your bets and making sure that you have something under your control and outside of the banks. Like as it says on our website, it's better outside the banks. This is one of the options that everybody has universally to back up their wealth with something real. This has happened all throughout history. There's been infinite numbers of nation states and empires and city states that have held the currency. They printed it and inflated it away to nothing and worthlessness. But what it always comes back to is gold and silver, because that's real and it's something that you can touch, hold, and use for a transaction. And no matter what happens next, whether we get taken over by anybody else or we get our stuff together and start making it work properly, gold and silver are going to have a really important place in whatever comes next. So highly recommend getting some.
I would also add to that and say that, realistically, gold hasn't really changed much in value over thousands of years. Like back in, it's always been like 1 ounce of gold will get you a fine tailored suit and a really nice dinner, like go for dinner. Back in the day in Roman times, you get a nice toga and a fancy dinner. And today, still even today, fancy dinner and a well-tailored suit. Same thing a century ago. The only difference is money's worthless. The value of the money's gone down. That's why I call it a hedge.
Yeah, and actually, I did a little bit on the podcast that I'm on every Friday with Wayne about like the history of the cost of other things measured in silver or measured in gold. And one of the ones that was really interesting was a head of cattle. So one head of cattle, a cow, right? How much did that cost over time? So we're talking like for the last 1,000 years, basically, it averaged between 4 to 7 silver per head of cattle. So what is the cost of a cattle right now? About 50 silver pieces or ounces of silver. So what that means in effect is that the cost of stuff has gone up so much because the value of the dollar has gone down so much. And when you save and when you have an asset that kind of beats inflation, something like gold, you're protecting your purchasing power by getting more stuff, right? Because that's how you need to measure stuff. Just think of in the last 5 years, how much food has gone up. Is inflation 2% or 4%? No, it's probably closer to like 8 or 10, because the price of food has basically doubled in the last 5 years. That's like an average of 20% a year.
I can't believe it, because like an ounce of silver, this is a 1 ounce silver coin. The last time we spoke, I think was, there you go. I think the last time we spoke, this was worth somewhere in the ballpark of $58 or $60
US. Yep.
Right. It's now over $75 US, which is $110 Canadian right now.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So let me give you an example, right? So for the most of my life, right? So and our life, because we're about the same age, silver has fluctuated between $10 to about $25. Really hasn't gone above $25. And then it was at 25 to 30 for a little while. It came back down at it hit a high of 30, and then 2 years ago it went from 23. That's roughly where it was sitting. It went to 30 by the end of the year, and I remember going to VRIC that year. And Robert Kiyosaki, because I asked him, like, hey, what's your prediction for silver for the end of the year? And he made the prediction of 50 by the end of the year. Well, it hit 50 by the end of the year, but it hit that 50 mark at about July, August, or September, something like that. So 3 or 4 months early. And then from 50 at the end of the year, That was last year. Last year, this is the beginning of last year. It started the year at about 50, and then from that point, it went all the way up to 120, and then crashed back down to about 65, 70, and it's been staying there for the last couple months. But this also happened in 2008, where there was a rise to about $20 at that time. And this is why I'm saying this is the history. So it went up to $20, crashed about 40-50% down to about 11 or $12, and then it skyrocketed all the way to 50 at that time, and then came back down afterwards, right? And so now we're effectively doing the same pattern with the same problems, just magnified because there's far more debt, right? And so if you do if that example is what's probably going to happen this time, well, there's a good chance that we're going to have more inflation. We're going to have a rise in precious metals. There's going to be a massive increase in the prices of food, because that's what happened then too. And all of these problems are going to be magnified because of how much money has been printed. Like, I checked this previously. At that time when 2008 was happening, guess how much the American debt was?
$14 trillion, was it?
Close, 10. So So in the last, 16 years, there's been $30 trillion printed. And
wow.
So do you know Douglas McGregor, Colonel Douglas McGregor?
No, I don't.
Okay, well, he's an American guy. I don't agree with some of his stuff, but he's generally a pretty smart guy. I met him and talked to him at Burek this year, and he did a really good video to try and get people to understand how much a trillion actually is. Okay, so this is how you explain $1 trillion to somebody if you ever have to explain it, to really understand how much of a ridiculous number $40 trillion is.
Yeah, how much money that actually is.
Yeah. So let's say that today was the day that Jesus was born 2,000 years ago. Okay. And you spent $1 million every single day from that day until today. Guess how much money that is?
Well, that's 2,000 times $1 million.
Yes. Well, yeah. Well, no, that's 2,000 years. So 365 times 1,000 times 2,000 times $1 million times 365 times 2,000.
Oh, so every day?
Yes, every day.
Oh, every day. Oh, I don't know the math offhand. No,
it's just about 800 billion. So it's not even a trillion.
Whoa. Yeah. Okay. Those numbers are immense.
Yeah.
Once you start getting those numbers.
Exactly. So $1 million a day, every day since the time when Jesus was born was today, is like just under $800 billion. Okay. And the US is technically just the government, and that doesn't include anything else, all of the unfunded liabilities that are off the books right now, $40 trillion, right? So how is that ever going to be paid back, right? So either they have to repeg it to gold in some way, which is a possibility, they have to inflate it away, or it has to collapse. So this is the way that all currencies have gone. These two, which is collapse or hyperinflation, has happened to all currencies in all of history.
It's a soft default, right? That's what that is.
Potentially, yeah, exactly. It's effectively a default, but you're printing money. Like if you printed $1 million, that's called counterfeiting. But if the government does it, that's just
that's just good business.
Quantitative easing.
right. So for everybody who wants to know, you guys can hit the affiliate link. There's a QR code here if you want to, screen grab this right now. You can go check this out later. Give these guys a call. Have a chat with Bryce, have a chat with any of the other people over at New World Precious Metals, and they'll hook you up. They'll set you up with ways to hedge your bets. And we're not talking about gold stocks or anything like that. It's physical gold, silver, platinum, palladium, whatever the heck you want, the stuff that's actual money. So yeah, get yourself on over there. And I want to do a little introduction for my next guest. Well, I mean, we're going to have both of you on at the same time, but yeah, Dominic is he's been around the block, and he's coming here to talk about a little bit of the BC politics. So I guess without further ado, I want to bring you to the stage. Dominic, welcome.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. So we're in a predicament. You guys are both using the fake green screen thing. You guys got that stuff going on. So we're in a predicament, and we live in a communist paradise at the current moment, and we're hoping that something can turn around and people can. Oh, there's your room. So we could turn things around and hopefully get things better. And I wanted to bring you guys on. Chris Erickson might show up. He said he might pop in. He actually put out an endorsement for a candidate for the conservative leadership in British Columbia. But I just wanted to get your take. What's the feeling on the ground for the Conservative Party at the moment?
Well, you have to really. You guys can hear me right now?
Yeah, I hear you good.
Yeah,
your lighting's kind of dark or whatever, but
yeah, I need to get front lighting. I'm not a podcaster yet.
Fair enough.
No,
So what is your credentials then? So like just so people know like where you're coming from on this.
Well, I'm a dad. I'm a business owner. You know, in the sleep apnea business. Got involved heavily during the pandemic. I don't know if we can say that or not.
Yeah, but, we can say whatever you want.
Yeah. But yeah, no, we you know, we were sitting there seeing what was happening to society, and society was really going the opposite direction. So, you know, we were doing a lot of protesting, a lot of got involved in the Freedom Convoy. We were there during the nurses and doctors getting fired. Then in 2022, in August 2022, John Rustad got let go of the BC Liberals. A month later, he's sitting at my dining room with our team in Prince George, and we're talking to him about sticking around and, you know, let's work with somebody in legislature. He had all the right things. He was saying all the right things back then. He was standing up for parental rights. He was standing up against the climate hoax. He was standing up for the fired nurses and doctors. He's the only MLA that actually did not vote to condone the Freedom Convoy of Canadians going to Ottawa to use their fundamental rights to protest. It was peaceful protest, and he stood up for that. So we thought, okay, we got something that we can work with here, and we can probably get back British Columbia. In 2022, earlier on, there was an AGM, and that's when we call it the gun gang came in, and, you know, with, you know, so that's Aaron Gunn and all the people that came with him. And then there was also longtime conservative members that were already around. And we restarted the BC Conservatives, took it from polling at around 4% to almost forming government in 2024. And so a lot of the push with John Rustad started up here in the north. So it started, you know, in Prince George. We weren't going to get behind John Rustad because he only lives 45 minutes from my house. If we weren't going to get behind him, you know, then, you know, he wouldn't be where he's at right now. That's the biggest thing. And, well, where he's at right now is not even leader, but I'm saying we wouldn't have been in that position. We started building the party with people that came from commonalities. We were dealing with people that had life experiences. We had farmers. We had people in military. We had engineers. We were bringing people that didn't have experience in politics, but they have experience in life. This is the one thing that was missing, is we needed politicians to have life experiences, not these career politicians that we see. And yeah, and then it just kind of went on. And
so what happened then? What happened with that? I mean, John Rustad, he's no longer the leader, and it's because he went like, what happened? He was against all the woke agenda, and then all of a sudden he was firing people from his cabinet for woke reasons. Like, it didn't make any sense to me.
Well, that's just the thing, is he always talked about 10% of people trust politicians, and he said that wasn't good odds, and he was trying to be different. But what happened is once we hit that 24% and we started superseding the BC United, BC Liberals, and then he started having all of these people from, you know, his former party getting right in his ear, like the Bruce Clarks, who's Christy Clark's brother, and Norm Stowe and Pat Kinsella, and all these different people that were part of the downfall of the BC Liberals and the BC United, started getting in his ears. It's like, no, you're not going to win if you stay over there on the right. You need to move more towards the center. You need to move back to the centrist of it all, right?
Yeah, but why is that always the approach? I mean, that's the moving towards the right is what won him the seat. It's what won the party. It's what got the party rejuvenated, and basically what BC United, which was the BC Liberals, are no more because of that power of people who are just going, yeah, no, I would like a right leaning option. Actually,
that's the whole thing, is we wanted a right leaning. That's why it was popular. What people were talking about around the water coolers, at dinner tables, at work, finally there was a breath of fresh air. Like, I'm not going to sit there and
like what
take
what's in the water in Victoria? Like, to be honest, what's in the water? Because people get this idea that people are actually into these crappy ideas.
Yeah, well, that's where all the woke ideas come from. It comes from people living in Victoria. You got that whole group of different areas, different ridings in the Vancouver area. You come up here to the north where I am. I'm up in Prince George. You come up here and there is none of that, right? Like,
Right.
I'm not going to say there's none of it, but it's a lot more blue collar, resource workers, mill workers, people that tinkering on their pickup trucks. And we have people that are the ones that are making all the money for the rest of the province to spend. So we're the producers up here, and everybody down in the lower mainland are the consumers. And the consumers don't understand the producers. And without the producers, you don't have nothing to consume. And look at where we're at right now. We've got mills shut down, 31 mills shut down in the last 5 years. We've got mines that aren't opening up. We've got Chinese infiltration into 2 gold mines up here just recently that are 50% owned by the Chinese right now. We've got, First Nations that are holding our resources, like by the short and curlies. We can't get anything by anymore. So we were, when we were doing the big push, we were pushing all of the proper ideas. And when you have a bunch of these woke center or woke left saying, oh, you need to move more to the center, you're never going to win this. We actually got more people out voting in this last election that have never voted before. We're pounding those doors. We were talking to people everywhere, and we found what was working. And this was working. And we were getting more and more people that were saying, yeah, we finally see that we have a say. And then it wasn't just John Rustad that caused this whole shift to the center. It also had to do with internal. You also had some of the people on the board. You had some of the people that are in executive and still there that are a problem. There's a lot of problems with that party, and it needs to be changed. And there's not too many people running for leadership that will have the testicular fortitude, which is another way of saying balls, to do the changes, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I have to bring this up. So the BC Liberals, which used to be the conservative choice, it sounds crazy, but if you were a businessman or whatever, if you were an entrepreneur, you didn't have much choice. There was either the NDP, which are basically socialists, or the Liberals, right? So a lot of the free market thinkers would end up going in the free enterprise. Yeah. So there was that, but then we had this lady Katie Merrifield who came in as a director for a while, or a communications director, and so she comes in, and she was the one who was encouraging, like, you should get more involved in the BLM thing and get more into the LGBTQ thing, and that was her big claim to fame. Like, that was the approach. So they're hiring people like this, and then later she ended up getting hired on by Pierre Poilievre and his team. She just resigned, actually, just the other week.
I heard that it wasn't
crazy.
resigning. I heard it wasn't a resigning. I heard that she got let go. She had an option: either we're going to fire you, or you resign.
So, but what the question is, what is the gravitas of all these seemingly lefties joining in these right-wing parties and basically turning them into
controlled opposition?
Parties? Is that what you think it is?
Yeah, well, like the whole idea, like, you got to understand that, like, most of these people have a goal and an agenda, right? And they're going to do it ruthlessly no matter what. And that includes, I think one of the problems with the right in general is that we have this idea of playing fair, right? Like, you have your ideas, I have my ideas. We're gonna go into the arena of ideas, and we'll see which one wins with public opinion and debate and all that sort of stuff. They don't play like that. They're communists. They're like, no, we're gonna take power, and we're gonna keep power, and you're gonna shut up, and you're gonna suffer. That's how they think.
Yeah, there's
And they'll
a
by
lot of
any
that
means
happening.
take that power, like trick people into giving them that power instead of just honest debate and elections.
Yeah, well, how can, like, if we take a look, our elections that we had in 2024 provincially, those were not fair elections. There was shenanigans that went on. There was Hanvir Rendawa in Surrey Guildford. If he didn't already spend $250,000, they knew that Surrey Guildford riding could flip. But the problem is we had people within the Conservative Party BC. Now, I was on the board of directors, right? So I'm not just a little fry in this. I was on the board of directors as regional director up here in the north, and so we're in these board meetings, and we know for a fact that there was stuff that should have been done, and there was always excuses. So we actually had infiltration within our board of directors as well, and that board of directors was controlled, right? And it's still being controlled. It's being controlled by, there's people on that LEOC board that are controlling things as well, which the LEOC board is the ones for the leadership elections committee that's overseeing everything. So there's issues that are going on there. That's the problem. People want to see something different. We want to see governments that have democracy. We want to see governments and even parties that are actually transparent and fair. Like, I know it's a big, huge wish list to have that, but we deserve that because we're supposed to be in control and not the politicians, but we're stuck under the system. It's a constitutional monarchy where it's all hail the king and queen. The crown is, everybody doesn't know that the crown is actually the government that is currently sitting is the crown. And if you've got a woke, a lefty, you've got an NDP party, like we've got the David Eby NDP right now, that this is what they're doing, is they're controlling the narrative. They just had two treaties get brought to legislature this last week, these modern treaties, and then they're dancing around in the Hall of Honor, which I call now the Hall of Dishonor, because you're dancing around, you're chanting about all this money taxpayers are now having to give, even though this country was built by the people that came here, right? Every single person, even the natives that live on this land, they didn't originate here either. They came across that Bering Strait. They came from other places too. We're all immigrants to this country. That's the crazy thing. It might be dated back, but at the same time, we built the country. My parents came here in 1964. My dad's a bricklayer, right? Or mason, or like an actual real mason, not these Freemasons.
not a Freemason.
Yeah. And so he's built schools and shopping plazas and malls and high-rise apartments. Like, he was part of the building in Toronto area, right? Like, if we didn't have people coming from overseas to build this country, we wouldn't have roads, we wouldn't have railways, we wouldn't have free enterprise, we wouldn't have anything. And we have to learn how to all live together and build together, because we did that. But we've got this woke government that now it's all victimhood, and it's built on socialism, that it's all about control. It's divide the people, and it's even happening right now with the Conservative Party BC, right? You've got the lefties that came from the BC United, from the failed party. They infiltrated the conservative movement and then came and took over. There was more people. Like, they used a lot of the there was a social media dossier that got rid of 14 candidates because the BC United said, oh, if you don't get rid of these people, all of a sudden the information that's on these social media dossiers, it's going to get out to the media and they're going to rip you apart and all this other stuff. And I look at it this way. The media already hates anything conservative. So why would we even care what mainstream media thinks? That's why
it's the media that's perpetuating this. I mean, they're kowtowing to the perpetually offended, really, at the end of the day. And I know so many people that listen to CBC and they'll talk about this or that, and people are like, shut up, turn that damn thing off. I don't want to hear that anymore. This is just irritating. I don't want to hear it because I'm not offended. If anything, I'm offended at the fact that you think I should give a shit about this. Like, to be honest, really, at the end of the day, I don't care if you know what's offensive to me? Making up stupid stories that insult my intelligence and make me think that I should believe it. That's offensive to me. And, like, a lot of the modern stuff, is predicated on, the Kamloops school where there was a, mass graves, which most people believe now to be just a septic system. And most people want to exhume it. But of course, no, you can't turn that gravy train off. So it's like, it's really come to the point where, like, before, I mean, I would just hear all these stories about, oh, my people used to do that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You made up Bannock and like all this stuff that's just not true. And it's like, okay, most people would just humor somebody that gives them bullshit stories all the time. But there's a certain point where it's like, okay, your bullshit's costing me money now. Yeah. Like, it actually hurts. It's hurting us. And your bullshit of like, we're the stewards of this land, and we're now we own Vancouver. It's like, no, that's the most ludicrous thing in the world, to say that you have title ownership of all of Vancouver, right? We're talking trillions of dollars in real estate value out the freaking window. Like, this, if this doesn't wake people up, I have no clue what will in British Columbia. Like, to be honest, Carney won an election because he scared boomers out east to worry about what equity they'd have in their homes. Like, that's what he wanted on.
And he wrapped himself in nationalism, and that should tell everybody that there is a desire for what is Canadian. Like, what is it? What does it mean to be Canadian? What does it mean for Western values? Like, when you look at all of the policies that are being pushed across the board for most of the provinces, minus Alberta, almost all of them have some degree of socialist or communistic underpinning to them, right? And you got to understand too that DRIPA and the UN and like that is seize the means of production. It is literally the removal of private property and the control of natural resources and the people that live on those land through the mechanism of Aboriginal property title, right? That is the mechanism, but it is effectively and in reality communism rebranded.
Now, okay, I'm gonna sound like I got a tinfoil hat on right now. But I'm looking at the situation and the reason why David Eby hasn't turned it around, because I've heard from lawyers that the legislature could turn this around by passing some legislation. Would they?
Well, of course they could. They could. Of course they could. But they don't want
totally. So, and this is where my tinfoil hat goes on. David Eby is completely compromised by the Chinese. We know that.
Yeah.
So my thought is the Chinese probably want to come in and make sweet talk with the natives. And get
They've already been doing that. They already have a whole bunch of deals.
Well, get them on board. And let's just be honest, the natives don't have a history of negotiating without being a certain naivete in that. And I have a feeling the Chinese are going to move and they're going to freaking rip them right off. They're going to rip them off and everybody loses. The Chinese come in, they got a beachhead into North America. That's what I worry about. And that's what's really, honestly, a genuine thing. And as an American, I don't want to see that happening either.
Yeah, well, it's already happening, and we're seeing it. So I worked the last 10 months. I worked for an independent MLA in legislature, and my job was research and outreach. And when I was researching every one of those bills that came into that house, every single one of them had DRIPA, which is the Declaration Rights of Indigenous Peoples, right? Which all of a sudden brought in from the United Nations Declaration. So we got foreign bodies, unelected bodies, that are actually sending documentation through the UN to actually overtake all of our laws. And every bill that went through that legislature for the last year and a half has DRIPA all the way through the whole thing. And this is the problem, is we take a look, the way that we got DRIPA and we got UNDRIP was way back in 1982. There was another Trudeau that brought in that Constitution Act of 1982. It was done. It wasn't that it was asked for. We need to do these constitutional changes. We already had the B&A Act of 1867. We already had that Constitution enshrined. But they brought in the Constitution Act of 1982, which all of a sudden, that's where Aboriginal. Now, it wasn't Aboriginal title that was brought in. When people actually take a close look at it, there was nothing that stated Aboriginal title in that 1982 Constitution Act. It talked about Aboriginal rights. It brought in Aboriginal rights that they would be recognized, because still under the Indian Act, they're still classified as wards of the state under the Indian Act.
I just want to say right out of the gates here, you brought up the Indian Act. This is the reason why I won't accept that Indian is some sort of ethnic slur against natives. If that was like, if there was the N-word Act in the in the United States, they had that changed ages ago, because that's actually offensive. Nobody's asking for the Indian Act to be title to be changed. So forget it. I'm not buying into that.
Well, I talked to a lot of Indians, and they call themselves Indians.
Yes.
They don't call themselves First Nations. They don't call themselves Aboriginal. They don't call themselves Indigenous, because the actual definition.
No, that's just white people with funny hats or with earrings that have feathers on them, right?
Well, take a look at there was a video that was going around, and I think Drea Humphreys shared it as well. And that would have been from yesterday or the day before in the Hall of Dishonor, right? That's what I call it now, because you can't bring Christians in the Hall of Honor anymore, because ARPA went there, right? Which they're a Christian group, and because they have Christian ideals, right? We had the NDP chastise Heather Moss for bringing ARPA, right, into that Hall of Honor. Right? And that Hall of Honor is supposed to be for guests. And ARPA is actually a lobbyist group too for Christians. So now Christianity, well, let's take a look at C9, right? We can go down that road too, right? But this is happening everywhere. It's happening in BC. It's happening in our federal government.
It's happening everywhere in the West.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Alberta's not doing that, which is great. You know what I mean?
It's happening in the U.S. too.
Yeah, but let's go back to the Indians that I talked to. I talked to the true hereditary chiefs. That lady's not a true hereditary chief. I don't know how she got that title, because most hereditary chiefs that I know,
like Elizabeth Warren got her university degree. I mean, like let's just be honest. I mean, like, you look at his face value and we all see it. Everyone's pretending we're not seeing it. Like, I guess I'm the kid from the story of the emperor has no clothes, right? That's what it takes, is somebody just point it out and say, this is absurd. I'm tired of this. I'm not playing this game.
We have to have enough people that are willing to do that. That's the problem. Everybody's always afraid of being called a racist, right?
I'm not racist. I just this is stupid.
You know something? I own 4 color TVs. I'm not a racist.
Oh, come on. But no. The thing is, what's racist? Having laws that pertain to property ownership that is only for a particular race of people. That's racist. Like,
I don't. Racist? DEI hiring practices.
Yes, absolutely.
Target one group of people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the soft bigotry of low expectations, but it's racist nonetheless. It's awful, and it results in the best people not having the job, and people who are apt not having opportunity. It's crazy. Like, everybody loses in those equations. So no, I'm not. I don't have to defend myself for not being racist. I just think it's absurd. Like,
the people calling you racist,
point it out.
The people that are calling you racist are the actual racists.
Totally.
Because they're protecting a certain race, right?
Yeah.
And so here's the other thing: is they use that whole lefty playbook. It's a book called Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The Communist Manifesto. If people would sit there and read these books, read 1984, take a look to see what's really going on. Right. And you can actually learn, if you actually read Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky, you will know that rule number 13 is, taking people and calling them names, demeaning them, centering on them. Right. And so if you can learn how to, talk with people like this and turn it around on them. So there's actually a book called Defeating Rules for Radicals.
Oh, I'd
Right?
love to read that book.
Yeah. Well, you got to read both. You have to know what they're
Oh, you got
talking
to
about.
know the rules before you can
Yeah.
read. I got
Yeah.
you there.
And so I've been using that now for the last 4 years. And anytime I get up against a lefty, they just don't have that. They can't talk their way out of it because I always go back and center it and then make them repeat what they're saying. And then it makes them look bad, right? So, but
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
yeah. So if we want to go back to this whole thing, like we were talking BC politics, right? It's there's so much stuff that is going on in BC, and if we don't stop it here, it's going to go clear across the whole country, right? We need to stop all of this madness right here. We need to get a grasp of what's going on. And the first thing that we've got to do is we need to get somebody as the leadership of the Conservative Party that's going to be a proper opposition and government in waiting. And there's not too many choices of people that are going to be able to do that. Because you were talking about Katie Merrifield. You know who Katie Merrifield's one of her best friends is? Caroline Elliott. Caroline Elliott is running for the leadership of the Conservative Party, who's Kevin Falcon's sister-in-law.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and she's
So,
the one.
like, I know people advocating for her.
Yeah,
and they're saying that she's the right pick for that.
Yeah, well, the thing is they've got this whole team. We call them the Ontario Mercenaries that are here. So Corey Tonique, who was Doug Ford's campaign manager, is here.
I got to give that guy credit. Okay, credit where credit's due. That guy can take a crappy candidate and make him win.
I know. You and I talked about that the other day.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Like Doug Ford is a piece of shit candidate. Let's just be honest.
Not even a real conservative.
Yeah, it totally got him to win. And Corey Tonique on the other hand as well.
Yeah. During
the campaign, during the federal election, I was one of the outspoken people saying that Pierre is doing this all wrong. He's only targeting people that are already going to vote for him. He needs to get out on podcasts. He needs to do all this other stuff. Corey Tonique was like the only one who in the mainstream that really agreed with that sentiment.
Well, then why is she not doing that with Caroline Elliott? She missed the Juno debate. How stupid was that?
Yeah. That was stupid.
More people watched that Juno debate than the 30 or 40 people she had at her event in Kelowna.
Yeah,
right?
I think that was a mistake, and I think afterwards she because for the people that are talking to me. Oh no, okay, she hasn't.
No, of course not. She made excuses. She says, "Well, if Peter Millibar's not going to be there, why should I be there?" You know, Keenan Bexley, he lied to us. He said that all the candidates were going to be there. He never once said that, right? He even showed that Peter Millibar hadn't confirmed.
So for people who don't know and are watching right now, there was the Juno News, which used to be True North News, and they restructured. And Keenan Bexley, who did Counter Signal, they joined those two forces together. So True North, which was originally Andrew Lawton and Candace Malcolm. Yeah. Andrew Lawton is now an MP. Candace Malcolm joined with So and then that's now Juno News, which gets confusing because you're like, we just had the Juno Awards, which is a shit show, and then now we have the Juno debates, and you're like, wait, what? Like what? So yeah, the name's unfortunate, but and then with the timing, but yeah, so it was a debate. But here's the thing: this is the debate that would have been, with the agency that is most trusted amongst the base of voters.
Well, the grassroots
within the party, yeah.
The grassroots.
We're talking about a party election. We're not talking about a general election. We're talking about an internal party election to vote in a leader. So to not show up to that was a pretty big mistake in my estimate.
Ridiculous. And don't forget that her campaign also bought out the tickets for the venue at the time so that nobody else could show up. So it would be only Caroline supporters there. And then when they moved to another venue, then she refused to come.
Yeah. That's a big thing. Like, it's all these games, right?
Ridiculous.
So we got involved in politics because we didn't want to have these games. We thought we had the party that was going to do things right, because that's what we were selling to people. We were selling them that this is a different party. We're not going to have politicians, right? It's going to be a party.
We also want to win. So there's that as well, right? So credit where credit's due for John Rustad. He turned a party as a leader, turned a party from something that hadn't had a seat in like 100 years into almost winning the general election against David Eby.
And then he backstabbed everybody.
But then the problem is he had
sucks.
the wrong people around him giving him advice, right? Because earlier on, he was listening to people like myself and other people like me that were grassroots, that knew the ground people, knew the people that were supporting the party, the ones that were willing to sacrifice their lives, their livelihoods to stand up against fundamental rights and freedoms. Because it was the freedom movement that relaunched this party. It was the fired nurses and doctors and the Bill 36 that relaunched this party. It was the people that didn't go out and vote before that relaunched this party. And so if they would have stayed with all of the same things that we all talked about, the things that we were promoting, what we were telling people at the doors, and if they would have stuck to that, we would have had 50, 55 seats in legislature and we would have been government. The only problem is we allowed that whole BC United collapse to fold within our party. And none of the members at that time were asked. None of the candidates were asked about it. They just did it automatically, which is wrong. Because we were already on the proper trajectory that we got a whole party that has been around for how many decades to fold their tent. And we're going to sit there and bring the losing team on. And then we brought on their staff. So we brought the losing team on. So it's like going to the Stanley Cup and getting rid of all of your coaches and taking the coaches from the 2016 to run your team. Right?
Brutal.
Yeah, it's just, and we saw it happening. And we had great candidates that got let go. You know, we had, when they started letting go of some of these fired nurses and doctors, that's like a huge kick in those people for the second.
Yeah, what happened there with Corinne Maury? Because I haven't had her on since.
So Corinne Maury,
she's amazing, and I've had her on the show several times. She's fantastic.
Yeah,
but somehow she ran as an independent last go around. And
what they did is at the last minute, there was some people that were making the decisions thinking that she was going to be a headache, right? Because she's very outspoken, right?
Well, she was a headache, all right, because she took half the vote and the NDP took it.
Yeah, absolutely. Same thing happened in other ridings.
But that's their fault. That's their fault, in my estimate. Oh, we lost Bryce.
Yeah, I think he probably has to go somewhere and come back.
Okay, I'll pop him out of here. But yeah, so that sucks, and I don't want to say that that Corinne was no good and that she
was great. She was great.
She's absolutely fantastic. It's their mistake if they kicked her out and she's in mid campaign. Like she's not dropping out of the campaign because of that, but she did literally take half of the conservative votes that would have been a landslide.
Yeah, she took almost 10% of the vote in that riding.
Yeah, and that was in Kootenay. Nelson, that's right.
Yeah. So Corinne and I are actually good friends, and I absolutely adore the lady. She called me up when they didn't call her as a candidate. It's not that they let her go. They never called her as a candidate, but she was campaigning as if she's going to be the candidate because she was promised. She was promised that position. And so she had been doing all that campaigning. And then they get somebody totally different. And she's going, wait a second, I've already paid all this money to be out there for the last year and a half, because it wasn't that she wasn't involved. She was involved for a year and a half before they kicked her out.
Like, oh, yeah, wait, just say he'll be right back. Okay, cool.
Yeah. But so there was a lot of that was going and happening, right?
That's so, it's so disappointing.
If you saw my text messages to John Rustad from March of 2024 to probably September, October of 2024, you guys would look at it going, holy crap. I was giving him shit every move when he brought Eleanor Sturko into the party, somebody who's pro Soji, pro everything, pro drag queen story time. They brought drag queens to the RCMP detachment in Surrey, where they did drag shows in the Surrey cafeteria.
I think that stuff is just like provocateur stuff to piss off conservatives. 100%. I think like that's really what it comes down to. Here in Squamish, they have the rainbow crosswalks. Yeah. But then they had to do construction, so they just they paved over it.
And never went back.
there's a sign saying Rainbow Crosswalks coming back, coming soon. It's gonna be here, and like, you know, we're walking along as a family. You're like, why? Like, why? You don't need it. It's stupid.
I had
Like,
a
nobody
friend of mine.
cares.
So I had a friend of mine who was Jordan Keeley's campaign manager in Fort St. John. She sent letters to City Council and to Ministry of Transportation saying that these actually violate actual traffic laws for the markings on the road, that it could cause accidents because it's not the white and black that it's supposed to be. And there's no rainbow walkways in St. John.
Why does there have to be any message at all? Like, let's be honest. Like, what if Christian groups came out and they put the big fish on the crosswalk, or they put the olive and the dove, and put the olive branch and the dove, and they put the symbology like that? People would lose their mind. People would lose their freaking minds. And it's no different. That's their religion. It's a stupid state religion or religion of woke. Like, just let it go. Have it. Enjoy it.
Yeah.
Enjoy your life with your woke religion. Just don't impose it on anybody else. That's where people get pissed off at the end of the day.
Isn't that all we're asking? Like, even as parents, right? So the whole Soji thing, right? Because we protested Soji. We protested the gender ideology in the schools because they're removing parental rights. They're actually putting teachers between the parents and the children, right? And they've actually come out. If you go to BCTF, which is the BC Teachers Federation page, it's actually in there that they actually can have authority over your kids before the parents do.
It's
you're. How many of us are parents here? I'm a parent.
I'm a parent.
Yeah, Bryce, are you a parent yet?
No, but I am an uncle now.
Yeah, none that you know of.
No, but I am an uncle now.
I thought maybe you turn your phone off on Father's Day so you don't get that call. I'm kidding. Bryce is a good guy. But so we know that anybody does anything to our kids, right? Don't get a mama bear out there. A mama bear will sit there and just rip them alive, right? But they have to learn that we're actually entrusting our kids to these institutions, and these institutions are supposed to educate them and give them proper education. And what they're doing now is they're indoctrinating, and they were saying that we were indoctrinating our own kids. We're raising our own kids to have our ideals. We're raising our kids.
That's what you do. If you don't like that, piss off.
Yeah.
Well, and like, this is a key point of the communist mantra, is that they want to control. Like, you got to understand, right? All of the things that are happened in China 100 years ago. This is why China is what it is today, because the communists took over and they basically instituted their ideology. And there's an old saying that if you want to take over a country, you don't just use military force, you teach the children, because you're going to institute whatever ideology you want in those children, and eventually they will grow up with the ideas that you want. And we're starting to see that. Like, the move to the left has been happening for a long, long time. Well, why is that? Because what we got taught in school is, like, I remember being in school 25 odd years ago now, and it was starting to move in that direction even then. Like, I think of this, okay? I'm 39, and I was the first generation of participation trophies, right? So there were, like, that was one of the starts of the death of meritocracy. Like, before that, you lost. Sorry, my cat's going to join us. You either
completely disappear.
You either won or you didn't, right? And you got first, second, or third. But they brought in participation trophies, and even the kids, when I was there, I was like, "What is this for?" And everybody was like, "Threw this garbage away. It's worthless." But we knew that because we grew up understanding that you either win or you didn't, right? And if you didn't win, you use that to grow and you use that to improve yourself. But there was winning meant something, right? And now they've
and losing meant something too. Like the idea of, like, taking a loss and taking it with stride, and not being a sore loser and all of that stuff. Like, that's a very important lesson that kids need to learn.
Yeah, and now everybody gets a trophy just for participating and showing up. And now you see all of these people that can't handle any sort of hardship. They can't handle any sort of friction. They're just victims, right? And so you have this mentality of failure, of victimhood, of you owe me, of entitlement, right? And it's destroying what the West was built on, which is our fundamental Western values, freedom of speech, right to work, freedom of press, freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, and the underlying idea that encompasses all of that, which is meritocracy. Doesn't matter what your color is; it matters what you can do, right? And what you can do should be what you're compensated for, not just you have connections, or you have money, or you have a skin color, or whatever, right? And this is all being broken down step by step by step by step by step.
So this is actually happening. It's called critical race theory, is what they're
That
teaching.
too. Yeah.
Right.
Well, critical
And-
theory is where that came from. That
Yeah.
came out of the Frankfurt School in Germany.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're actually doing it like through the whole thing. So we actually had our independent Christian schools that originally were not getting public funding, and now because they take the public funding, if you're taking the public funds, you have to do what the public institutions tell you to do now. And so now you're starting to see critical race theory and gender ideology is now starting to infiltrate into our Christian private schools, our independent schools, which is absolutely crazy. So we actually up here in Prince George, we actually started our own. We call it a homeschool resource center, right? So, but we've hired educational assistants to actually help us out. So if we can't get if we can't do the homeschooling ourselves, we got people that are doing this education, but the parents are directly involved. And if we want to go and help them out with one of the courses, like for example, I'm going to go this week or coming up, and I'm going to teach them how to plant seeds, water, how to grow gardens. It's being Italian. Every Italian has a garden in their backyard, and so we're going to actually teach the kids how to garden, right? Then we also teach them PAL and CORE in all the schools, and the school actually starts from grade 1 to grade 12 that we started, and every single community should be doing this by giving another option for alternative education.
Mm-hmm.
And if we could actually pull our kids, because we started our school the day after the Million March for Children on September 23rd of 2023, the next day we started our school up here, and we pulled our kids from public school. And that's what we need to do, is have that education. And that's the other thing, is when we get the right person into government here in BC, we should actually have the money should follow the kids, that the taxpayer, the parents, should have a choice where their kids go for education. Right? So that's the biggest thing that we need to have happen here. And that could actually happen once you form government. You can do what they do in Alberta, because Alberta, they got charter schools, they have independent schools, private schools, and public. And the money will follow the kids wherever it goes. Because each child in British Columbia, for example, the government gives between $11,000 to $33,000 per student.
So we got a local to you in the chat here. The shift has hit the fan. For 10 says, I live close to PG. I'm assuming that's Prince George.
Yeah.
We have a trans flag painted on one of our crosswalks in town. I saw Mr. PG waving the trans flag last summer. This woke crap is up here too, my man. It's a big problem.
Know it is.
Who's Mr. PG? Who's Mr. PG?
So Mr. PG is he's the mascot for Prince George. You come into Prince George, and it used to be a big, huge log. If you pull up Mr. PG online, he was a big, huge log stick man, and now it's made out of metal, but it looks like wood because we're lumber industry up here in Prince George. So Prince George we have like 3 pulp mills, sawmills. The sawmills slowly are all running out. Now that crosswalk that they're talking about downtown, it actually goes across the street from the Civic Center, and it goes into a medical clinic, which is where the transgender clinic is, where we've protested many times. Like, we've been trying to get that crosswalk removed, right? And when they're talking about there's Mr. PG. So in June, Mr. PG will be holding a pride flag, which is stupid.
So like I'm pretty transparent with my kids about this stuff too, and I talk with them. Like my son's a little too young to understand it, but my daughter's starting to get it.
Yeah.
And I even encourage like the regular rainbow flag, the original rainbow flag, because what it meant was everybody's included. It's supposed to be everybody, right? It's when they incorporated all these different other little chevrons and stuff like that. Those turned into like different identities that had nothing to do with just everyone's being included.
Don't you remember the latest one now? Now it's murdered women too.
Murdered
I'm not kidding.
murdered
In town here, because there's a whole native. They have the flag with the chevrons and the little circle, and in the circle now they have like a couple of eagle feathers.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh man, like this. It's just I love that it's getting this ridiculous. Actually, I encourage it to get more ridiculous, because the more ridiculous it gets, the more it wakes people up. And that's the best part. And when you say it to people deadpan, and they're like, "You're joking, right?"
No.
Like,
nope. No, this is legit 2026.
And if you don't say it, you're a bigot, you're an awful person. And if like really lean into them about that, because that's really what the point is. It's to browbeat people and get them to submit.
Exclude. You notice that there's no point on there for white people. Like, it's including everything but certain groups of people.
Well, yeah, that's when it becomes the exclusion flag. And that's what I said to my kids. Like, yeah, the rainbow flag, whatever. I'm fine with that. Whatever, I don't care. But at the same time, can't we just assume that the Canadian flag means everybody?
Yeah, well, that's what it was supposed to. Anybody that was Canadian, right?
Like, we don't need to have the other flags. We don't need a rainbow flag. But if you want to have, your whatever, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, it just hurts me.
You go into schools, right? And you have a hard time finding a Canadian flag in a public school, or a British Columbia flag in a public school. But you'll find pride flags through the whole frickin' school.
Yeah. And it's a perfect example of what divide and conquer feels like in practice, because that's what this is. It is cultural Marxism dialed up to 11, right? And the more you can divide people along racial, ideological, class-based, whatever, and you don't have a central identity. We use, and like another example of, from my childhood here, like when I was in elementary school, we sang the national anthem every day, or every week at the very least. You don't do that anymore. Like, think about the last time that you sang the national anthem. The only time I've sang the national anthem,
Freedom Convoy,
Freedom Convoy at I did it at a conservative rally, but or a hockey game, right? And that's it. So where do you get a sense of pride in your country? And they've undermined that for decades now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's the biggest problem that we have, is we've actually lost our identity of what Canadians are. I write Substack articles as well, right? So if you go to Substack, it's under my same name, Dominic Shalley, and I write articles on all sorts of things in terms of constitutional stuff. I write about what's happening in the world. I talk about cultural Marxism. I bring in the whole fact that one of the articles I did is what does it mean to be a Canadian? And I use the example when my parents came to Canada in 1964. The day that my parents became a Canadian citizen, they had to go to classes to learn all of our history. They had to learn who all the prime ministers were. They had to know the national anthem off by heart. They had to know the history of Canada, all the provinces, everything. They took night classes, and the day they became Canadian citizens, it was a prouder day than when they had me as a kid, because they said, we did all this. We came to Canada for a better life for our family, and now we can call ourselves Canadians. They're Italian heritage, but they're Canadians. They call themselves Canadians first, Italians second. But we didn't have an identity, right?
Yeah, and now to undermine that specifically, that idea of identity and gaining something, now the floodgates are open. We've imported millions of people that don't share our values, that don't care about Western values at all. And on top of that, now we've passed legislation where if you happen to be in the country for a year over the last your lifetime, you can just come in, bring your whole family, and then on top of that, if you want to become a Canadian citizen, you don't even have to show up. You don't have to learn anything. Just get 50% on 20 questions, and you're good to go. And so, like, they have devalued, and like our passport used to be worth quite a lot worldwide. Now it's worthless.
Yeah.
Absolutely worthless.
I had a friend of mine that was traveling overseas, and she said that she ran into a couple of Canadians on their backpack. Their Canadian flag was turned upside down. That's the reason why she ran to them, saying, "Okay, here's my people. They understand what's going on in Canada."
Exactly.
Yeah.
And again, I have to reiterate this point. This isn't unique to us. This is happening everywhere in the West, right? There is a concerted, specific, very strong push and agenda to remove the fundamental rights that we care about in the West, because the global communism that wants to replace us, and if that happens, that the U.S. falls. The world behind that is the type of horrific you don't want to live in. I really don't want to live in that world, but it is coming unless something happens. Because if we don't stop this and we don't turn this boat around, this ship is sinking.
Well, something definitely happened in the United States, and the United States is changing dramatically, and people are waking up to it in a lot of places. It's amazing. Actually,
Well, this is the question. Are enough people going to wake up fast enough to do something about it? Because knowing's only half the battle. You still have to do something about it.
Oh, well, the people are doing things about it. I don't know if they're everywhere. I know where I'm moving to, things are being done about a lot of things. So, like, not where I'm moving to specifically, but I'm moving to the state of Texas. And in there was, I believe it was the Fresco area, just north of Dallas. There was this area where they were going to make a Sharia law sanctuary town.
Yeah,
and that was going to happen. No, Greg Abbott, Governor Greg Abbott, just
happening
said,
in Alberta too.
Not happening, and they put an end to that. And a lot of people are standing up for it. And Americans from all over the United States are actually traveling to Michigan and putting up a fight against what's happening in Michigan. There's a big takeover, and it just happens to be Muslim takeovers in these two areas. But there's woke takeovers, there's all kinds of stuff. The best thing about the woke stuff is, like, if you let them make everybody go broke, a lot of those people change their ways real quick. Nothing converts people to market economics faster than fucking not having a paycheck. Sorry, pardon my French, but like just being broke. Really?
Well, then we can open up the government grocery stores, bro. Get Olivia Chow in there, run the till.
Yeah, well, it's funny, but like that's the thing. When the state's broke too, then it's over.
That's coming, man.
That's coming. And like the state of New York, or the state of New York, and this was an interesting thing that happened under Trump under the first presidency. So what he did was he got rid of the exemption on federal income taxes. I don't know if you knew this. So under Biden reversed it, and I don't know if he's put it back yet, but I think he wants to win the midterms before he does this. But what he did was he got rid of the federal tax exemption. So basically, you could write off your overburden of taxes from your state on your federal income taxes and basically pay no income taxes. And this was BS. It was basically like almost like the what Alberta's dealing with transfer payments, but just in another indirect way, where all these high tax states got to write off their taxes and pay basically no federal income taxes. Well, states like Arizona, Texas, Florida got to pay all their federal taxes, and they don't pay any state income taxes, and they had to raise funds in other ways. And that's BS, right? It's absolutely BS. Trump put an end to that. Biden brought it back, but made them wake up, because a lot of the states were going to the federal government and saying, well, people are going to leave the state. What are we going to do? Like, lower your taxes. Straight up. Lower your taxes. What the hell you think they're going to do? Yeah, that's what you do.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of stuff happening. Like you guys, they're going to have like the midterms there in the States here pretty soon, aren't they?
Yep.
Well, that's in November. So, I mean, a lot can happen between now and November.
Well, and the thing is
a lot is going to
I hear that, so that you don't know what to believe, there's so much information coming out so quick, right? Mm-hmm. You got some people that are stating that there's going to be a shift where people are moving away from the Republican Party and more towards the Democratic Party.
Let's see that.
Yeah.
Well, Trump has dropped the ball on a lot of stuff, to be fair.
Yeah. But now, that's a question I have to ask. Is that what they're showing us so that we can all of a sudden go negative on Trump?
I mean,
well, that's what they would hope. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll give you a perfect example. The GOP, like literally this week, we're like, hey, we're not going to deport the Haitians anymore. And a whole bunch of GOP switched sides to prevent them from being deported. Why would you do that?
That wasn't Trump. That was definitely not Trump.
That's my point, though. Is like he's part of the Republican Party, right? Just like the BC Conservative Party was infiltrated, so is everybody everywhere. Like this is a
Yeah.
global problem, right?
Yeah.
There are people, like, and the way you determine people that are against you or for you is their policies. What are you trying to accomplish, right? This is the simple structure that I use for all of this to determine who's against me and who's with me, right? This simple thing, 5 things: questions, answers, actions, results, and choices. What choices are being made, what questions are being asked, what answers are being given, and ultimately what results are being what results are you getting by what actions are being taken? Because you can spew and say all the stuff you want. It doesn't matter as long as you are making a choice and taking an action. That's how you have to judge people, and that's how you have to what's the word, calculate on what they're doing, right? And
Mhm.
the results that are being gotten for the people that put him in, you know, there are positives for sure, but there's also some negatives. So I try to take a nuanced approach because I don't really trust anybody anymore, and I
Yeah.
try to get the best that I can with what we got. Right? You have to make a choice, right? You can't if you have to be on the chessboard, you have to make a move, right? That's you're gonna take some losses, you're gonna take some wins. And you want to get as many wins as possible, and you want to reduce the amount of losses that you take, but you have to look at what's happening and who's doing what and why, right? Ultimately, there's a reason that people make a choice, right? Whatever that
Yeah.
reason is going to force them to take an action. And that action is what has to be judged because the downline or downstream from that action is some result. They are trying to achieve a result. What is that result? And ultimately, how do you prevent or help that result to come to fruition? Because we're being pushed down a road, right? Because all of human history is a road that we have walked down together. Everything behind us is set in stone, you can't change. Everything in front of us is up for debate, up for choice. The choices we make today dictate where we go and what we get in the future, right?
Mhm.
And all of the times and all of the opportunities that you have to make a choice and take an action dictate what the result you're going to get, right? And this is the real problem with politics in general. Is just think about the debate. Why was there only one debate for the federal election? What an absolute absurdity, right? Why are we not getting a weekly, a bi-weekly? You should be talking about everything under the sun so I can know as much as possible. You should be sitting down with all of CBC or whoever so that we can really know who you are. Is that you can't hide behind this bullshit of, oh yeah, well, I just put out a press release and that's it. And that's all you get that's all you get, right? And we don't have any power. There's so many levels of bullshit, right? But ultimately, it is the systems that we live in that dictate what we're able to get in terms of power and where our civilization is going. And they have been undermined and infiltrated for literally generations to the point where we don't have any, to the point where we need to take back some of that power.
I would argue the U.S. federal election, like the presidential election last go around, was similar. And
Yeah.
it's not that Trump wasn't keen to do it. He first it was Biden. He had one debate with Biden, and then that ruined him. So he dropped out of the race, and then he had to debate with Kamala, and
Yeah.
that was awful too. I mean, it was okay. Well, we all saw it, and we all saw why he won. But yeah, when it comes to Trump, I'm hopeful. I'm way more hopeful than maybe some people are. And the reason why is because I think, whether he's successful at doing the things that he does, I think he genuinely is trying for the things that he said he was going to do. And, maybe a lot of people didn't like the war with Iran, which seemingly is done. What was it, 47 days? And, well, we'll see. But the Strait of Hormuz opened up today.
That's just another front in World War III, man. The underlying war is not done, not by a long shot.
No, not by a long shot. But the global tide is changing, and what I see is that it was going in a certain direction, and then Trump came in, and a number of events happened. Things like the Freedom Convoy, what happened in the Netherlands, what's going on in Ireland. I'm not sure even what that story is. I haven't got that deep into that one. But like what's happening in Germany, what's happening in a number of different countries, and the global tide's changing. What was pushed on us is not what's happening. Right? What they wanted with the World Economic Forum and the Club of Rome and China and all these players wanted, and even people in North America, including Harper and Trudeau and on this in the U.S. it was Biden and Clinton. Like they were pushing the decline of the West, It was the slow managed decline of the West, and that's been upset. That's absolutely been upset, and that's not what people want. And people are speaking clearly about it now, and I think that's an interesting development, and it makes me hopeful.
There's definitely been a significant amount of progress, but there's still other major structural issues that haven't been addressed. So a really simple example, and a really kind of a knock against Trump, is that they're rolling out the Genius Act, which is a way to circumvent the banning of central bank digital currencies. Central bank digital currencies are still being rolled out in Europe, here, Mexico, Vietnam, and like a dozen other countries. Like, that is still happening. That's not a policy that's been defeated, not by a long shot. And the Genius Act is still an additional level of control and a digitization of money. Right? They're still pushing for digital IDs. That's happening in Canada now. These policies are not defeated yet. Right? So although there's a lot more awareness, and I do have a little bit more hope than I did, but the trajectory has not changed all that much. It's still in a downward trajectory for sure.
So I find myself a bit like an Andrew Jackson type. I'm not against whatever kind of currencies people come up with, as long as it's market driven.
It's not, that's the problem.
That's the problem.
Control.
Yeah, central digital currencies. So like things like Bitcoin, if people want to get into Bitcoin and do that right now, I think because it's been speculated up, it hasn't really like leveled off. You kind of have to see something where it would level, and then people can use it so it has a store of value instead of a fluctuating or ever fluctuating value. Of course, we do see that with the gold and silver markets as well. But that's historically those things have been money. So yeah, we'll see where it goes. I'm of the ilk that say if it's centralized, it's no good. If it's market driven, it can be volatile, but it's still something much more worthwhile and could have value because it has to compete in the marketplace.
Well, and market-driven doesn't just mean competition; it means collaboration. Like, you can't have a market without people working together. The whole idea of a market is that you have the ability to come to the population and say, "Hey, I've got this. What do you got?" So we can collaborate. Like, there's one of the fundamental building blocks of civilization is that you have some sort of system where you can collaborate and work with other people to manage resources, effort, time, and energy and skills.
Yeah, but where does that take Canada right now with what we're doing right here in the West? Right? We're locking up our resources, right? We're not going to be resource rich. We're leaving everything in the ground.
Yep.
Right? We're actually going to have to buy everything, even though we have everything right here. So
well, this is a great plan right here. We got Waniska saying for $5, buy your children, grandchildren, gold or silver coins for every birthday. That's not a bad idea, actually.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a pretty spendy gift if it's a gold coin. Wow, what's an ounce of gold worth these days?
Love you, kiddo.
Yeah, right. Holy cow!
Love it. Here's $6,000. Yeah. Happy birthday
per year.
Per year, yeah. But but that's the one thing is we actually have to take a look is how do we get our economy back on track? Because if you take a look, we're in such debt that we're at the point right now that we're going to be at the point where we're going to have to borrow to survive in Canada, except just the other day, what did they do? They gave $120 million to Sudan, right?
Good old Sudan, our strategic partner.
For starving people in Sudan. Don't we have starving people in Canada?
Yeah, but they don't matter. They're here.
Oh, yeah. I forgot. Every child and every person matters except for Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's make a flag like that. Everybody but Canada matters.
Sounds like redistribution of wealth, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%. When you take a look at it, who's actually in charge? And, and the one thing that we actually have to take a look at is what do we need to do to turn our markets over? How are we going to get them to, start doing more resource development? How are we going to move this whole needle? And like I was saying earlier, we were talking about here in BC, how we've got the natives they've given the natives the power to lock everything up. They're handing everything over, all of the all the lands and everything and all the resource developments have to be under. It wasn't supposed to be a veto. It was supposed to just be a whole, we have to have conversations, be a part of the conversation. Not, hey, we're going to stop.
Yeah, we'll consult with you. We'll consult with you, and then you'll be part of the
even
conversation.
That, that's a slippery slope. Why does one group of people in our country benefit from our resources, but nobody else? How does that make sense?
Oh, because my grandmother peed on that blackberry bush around the corner, and that's my land now,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. There was that guy that did that.
The
comedy.
worst is it's not even that's not even how it is. It's my ancestor did it 1,000 years ago, and I know about this because I saw it in a dream. Like, this is how absurd it is. Like, no, I'm not joking.
I know you're not. That's the funny part about it, is you're not joking, and the funny part
And that's the reality.
is it's reality, and the reality is such a joke, right? And that's the one thing we have to realize, is how much of a joke is our reality that's happening right now.
Yeah.
Like, this is happening. And so, when we look at it, we should not be giving people rights due to their ancestry or their race. We're all here together. We
Yeah.
are put on the face of this earth to all be stewards of the land together. And what don't they get about that? Why are they not following? Like, they're actually following their actual prophecies, because their prophecies are showing them that now they're at the crossroads. Their prophecies are showing you're either going to go to greed and destruction, or you're going to join with the people. And they're at the same crossroads that we're at. And which way is it going to go?
Are you talking about native prophecies say this?
Yeah, it's called the seventh fire prophecy. If you look up the seventh fire prophecy,
and they made it up in the 1970s, dude. Like, I don't buy it. Like, unless you can prove to me that it was like actually like historical, and they've been passing this down. I just don't. I really I have a hard time believing any of this stuff. You walk around my town, and there's little placards everywhere that talk about all these like ancient things that they used to do 10,000 years ago and stuff. And it's like, no.
Where was all this stuff 40 years ago? Right? I'm 53. Right?
Never heard of it, but now it's like it's everywhere. And
yeah, it's because we've allowed it to happen. Canadians are too soft, too nice, and the thing is it's going to take us to have this hardship before we actually realize what's happening. Right? We're at the stage where life is too easy, and we're going to see harder times, because good times make weak men. Right? You know that whole saying, weak men. Yeah. Right? So, and that's the whole thing, is where did these stories come from? Where did all of the stuff that they're talking about happen? Why are we allowing it to happen? Why are we not standing up and saying, hey, you're going to call people indigenous? Well, I was born here. I'm indigenous to this land. Right? I actually went for a little tour with Drew Coover. We walked the streets here in Prince George. You guys know who Drew Coover is?
I walked the streets of Hastings with him and my cameraman, and it was the scariest thing I've ever done. Yeah, or one of the scariest things I've ever done.
Yeah, did you get anointed into the Sheboygan tribe?
I don't even know what that is. Sheboygan, that sounds made up.
Everybody likes a Sheboygan, right? But anyway,
but
that's the funny thing, is it sounds made up, but it's like,
it's 100% made up. But the thing is,
it's all made up. Like,
yeah, but we're walking the streets, and you got a bunch of these native people walking the streets, and Drew turns around, he says, I'm fifth generation Sheboygan. My mother was Sheboygan, my grandmother was Sheboygan, my great grandmother was Sheboygan, and I'm part of the Sheboygan tribe, right? It's like, they'll believe anything. This is the whole thing, is we can tell any stories that we want as well, right? Like, where does the truth in this whole bloody reconciliation happen? And it doesn't happen. Like, if you take a look and you have these conversations with these Indians, there's a lady here in BC. Her name's Bernadette Anderson. If you go to Facebook, she does talk. She lives on the reserve, and she's talking out against her reserve. She's talking out against all this victimhood that they have. It's just all bullshit. And if you get out there, 90% of the Indians and the natives don't want to see the shit that's happening right now. They're all pissed off because they're being left behind.
Yeah, and a lot of them don't even get
a lot of them don't even get clean water. Like, all this money that's been spent. Like, how do you not have these groups of people on reserves that have quality of life? It's insane. And how much is enough? Like, we're supposed to be a society of collaborators that work together and live together in peace. Like, that was one of the, like, I have a friend that I met. Like, he grew up in
post-war Germany, right? So but before the wall fell, and he was on the east side, so he really saw the horrors of communism firsthand, right? And when he came to Canada, he was like, these people are good people. We have so much space, we have so much appreciation, we have respect, and we work together, right? And all of the fundamental ideas that we see ourselves as Canadians that were born here, we're losing that because there's people that don't believe in these things, and more importantly, that actively working against them to undermine them or remove them, right?
Yeah.
And as soon as you remove a sense of pride from a people's culture, it's much easier to destroy that culture. And there's only a couple of types of culture that do that, and none of them are good, and we don't like them. We don't like those cultures because they're destroying ours.
Yeah. Well, take a look. So I was actually watching a video earlier today. It was sent to me, and the House leader for the BC Conservatives, right? Her real name is Teresa Point, right? She goes by the name now, Alia Warbus. In this video that was done 3 years ago, she talks about how she's going to decolonize every single white person by having them say her name, Alia Warbus, which is not her real name. And this is in video, and this was put out here on X. And this is somebody that we have that's the House leader for the BC Conservatives. Like we were talking about infiltration, right? It's like infiltration of the federal Conservatives. How many floor walkers did we have for the BC Conservatives? 5, which gave the Conservatives, gave the Liberals the majority vote in the House of Commons. And so we've got this kind of stuff happening. We're not looking at the people that are around us, and we're not getting the proper people that are representing us. These are people that we voted in to represent us, and they're not representing what we want. They're not representing where we should be in society, and they're allowing for all of this to go sideways. So,
TikTok, time's ticking.
Time is ticking, and then
and this is kind of my point too, right? Is that all of these problems. Think about any problem that we've discussed here and every other discussion you've ever had with anybody. All of the problems that you see in society, right?
Yeah.
Are those problems getting better or getting worse? Are the people that are supposed to be fixing those problems doing so or not? And ultimately, are those problems capable of being stopped before they become terminal or existential? And I would argue that some of these problems are existential and are not going to be fixed in time before they're not. And if that is the case, you really have to decide and determine and figure out, how am I going to protect myself and my family, right? And this is one of the reasons I got into gold and silver, just bring it back to that for a moment. But you have to look on an individual and a community basis, saying, hey, the people that are supposed to be representing me are not. What do I do about that? If I can't do anything about that, how am I going to protect myself and my family, right? Because that is the ultimate question that most people care about. I have a family. I have people that I care about. If I can't live a normal, peaceful life like I did when I was growing up, well, what do I do about that? How do I do something about that, right? Those are the ultimate questions that everybody in society is going to have to answer. Because if you don't, you're either going to be swept aside by history, or you're going to make an impact on history and be a part of the change that you need to see, not just that you want to see. Everybody is going to have to make a choice that you either fight or submit, because there is no other choice to make.
Yeah. That's well, you kind of summed it up there, Bryce?
I'm good at that.
Well, you gotta yeah. Well, you really have to look out for you and your family. And if that's where I got. That's where I got. My community wasn't there for me. The province wasn't there for me. The country wasn't there for me. I'm going where I know I'll be welcomed in, and people will be there for me because I'll be there for them. That's the thing. I've always been that kind of person. I've always been there for everybody around me. Very much neighborly sort of person, and I want to live where that is. That is, and man, our culture has absolutely changed. I'll never forget COVID. COVID really scarred me for what people can actually become.
People that you actually love and care about, and what they actually would do.
People in my community, people in my neighborhoods, like
ripped families apart, man. Ripped families apart.
I'll tell you right now, the thing that I've been saying time and time again since 2020, what COVID taught me, you're stuck with your family. You get to choose your friends. And I found that friendship, the friends that I made from 2020 to now, are people that you can count on. these are the people that are your true family, because the rest of them, if you think about it, I used to farm for a bit, and I raised pigs, for example. If you've ever seen piglets being born and how they'll fight for that front teeth, that's how it is with our litter mates that we grew up with. We're always fighting to be the front teat, right? But your friends, they'll give it up to you. They'll say, "Hey, we've drank well here. You go ahead. You can sit there. It's your turn." Right? Our friends will be there. I had a situation where we had our hot water tank. I was at a rally about an hour and a half south of Prince George, which is Quesnel, and I was there doing a rally. My hot water tank burst in my house. My wife and my young daughter at that time call me up crying because there's hot water going everywhere. I called my brother-in-law up that you'd think that he would be there to go and help them. He goes, "Oh, I'm too busy. I won't be able to get there for an hour and a half." I make 2 phone calls, and the second person I call, they said, "I'll be there in 5 minutes," and they live 10 minutes away. Right? This is somebody I only met like a year earlier.
Yeah, because they know exactly where the valve is, and they're just, okay, autopilot, getting there fast as I
It's
can.
the fact that he dropped everything he would do to go and do it.
Absolutely.
Right? And this is somebody I only met a year previous, and he's
That's what I'm saying.
alive.
In my head, I'm not thinking about the circumstances or anything. I'm just thinking about the valve that needs to be shut. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm getting there
absolutely.
as fast as I can.
Yeah, but that's the one thing we learned through COVID. We learned that we actually have people that actually care about people, and the ones that we think that would care about us don't care about us, that it's all selfishness. And we learned that family and friends that we had, that we thought that we gave everything to, where the rest of us, we found these new friends, these new people that if they called you up and within a heartbeat, you'll be there to help them out and support them. If they called you for help, you'd be there. And so one thing, and that's the one thing I'm going to really thank COVID for. What it did is it actually made you realize who your true friends and your support that you have around you.
Your community. Yeah, community is the hardest to build and the easiest to lose. And when I talk about this kind of writ large about what the requirements for surviving what's coming is, it's skills, assets, resources, community, and protection, not necessarily in that order.
Those are the 5 things you always preach.
Yeah. Because you can boil everything down to those 5 things that we do in society, right? You have some degree of community that is the bedrock of where you are, your geographic community, your work community, whatever. It's the group of people that you deal with on a regular basis. If you can't protect what you have, well, you got nothing, because somebody's eventually going to take it. You can't survive without skills, because you have to have one to survive, and the resources and assets that you have in control dictate how much of what you can do within your community, right? So there's other stuff beyond that, like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but those 5 things are what you must have to survive as a community.
And the thing is building communities in every single area across British Columbia is what we should be doing, is with our close friends, our close allies. And then you're going to have yourself, you're going to have your food security, you're going to have your health and wellness, you're going to have your educational plans, you're going to have how you're going to trade, barter. Like, people need to learn how to trade and barter rather than it just being a commodity of gold or silver, that kind of stuff. That's great to have. But if you can actually have a skill, if you can actually have things that you're doing, whether you do it for food's going to be scarce. If we want to have good food, you have your community where these people here will grow this certain product. This people here will grow this certain product. And then you can barter and trade with everybody.
So I had a little bit of an eye roll there, because I studied economics for a number of years, and one of the best lessons I ever got was from Dr. Walter Block. I actually even had the opportunity of having him on the show. I don't celebrity starstruck on anything. I've fangirled over Walter Block so bad. He was my favorite. But one of the things he taught in one of his lessons was the double coincidence of wants, right? And this is a very key factor of why money exists. Money, real money, why it existed in the first place, is because the double coincidence of wants in the barter system is a big problem. And his example is, if you're a pickle wanting chicken farmer, you have to find a chicken farming pickle wanter, and without that, there's no exchange. There is no exchange, and then you have to go around town finding somebody who wants pickles so you can get chickens. And without and this is where money's born. This is the idea of something that, what's that?
The intermediary of
The
value.
intermediary, that's the value, right? So it has to have a few specific things about it. It has to be a good store of value, it has to be potable, and it has to be divisible. These are the things that, and precious metals throughout history have been the best example of what that can be. Governments are not very good with the fiat thing, because they'll just divide it up and make it smaller and smaller and smaller infinitely. Exactly. So yeah, that's why I'm such a big fan of. I love systems, right? I'm a mechanic, so when I got into the study of economics, it was like, oh, this is a dream. This is like how you tie psychology, which I'm like, kind of, why people are whacked out, but understanding that through this system, this idea that Ludwig von Mises came up with, called praxeology, which is the idea of human action, why people make decisions, why people make these decisions that they make. And it's not about what makes them tick, it's the fact that they do tick that is the ultimate factor in this. So I absolutely am enamored with economics as a study. But yeah, the barter system, it's a good sort of
it only works as far as the tribe that you have is you're able to work on that level. It's for tribes and lower. Like after a certain level, it breaks down.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. But we still have to have that in place, right?
Yeah.
Because not everybody has that monetary value, but they can actually, their labor is value, right?
Yeah.
Their what they can create is value. What they can grow is value, right? And so you have to have a mixture of both, right? You're going to have the people that don't have those skills, they don't have those attributes, or they're looking for something different that's not available, right? Or it's not available from this place here, that you're going to get it far away. Then yeah, you're going to have the monetary system, and you're going to have it so you have that option, right? But you have I
love where you're going with this, because you're explaining how the economy works and why some don't. Because you're explaining value. Value is in the production of things.
Yeah.
And this is where a lot of people
is organization of that.
Yeah, money is just an explainer, right? It's a store of value for things that exist, like widgets. And when we say widgets, we just mean anything that somebody's created. Whether it's food or it's clothing or mechanisms or cars or this or TVs or whatever. All of these things are things that are created. If we're not creating things, we don't have an economy. And what Canada's got it ass backwards. In 10 years, in the last 10 years, Canada has created 950,000 government jobs. None of which create anything.
Yeah, they're all a drain on everybody else.
I think your number is down. Or you're just saying the Canadian jobs, or you're talking about provincial jobs too?
Canadian.
No. Yeah, government, Canadian federal jobs.
Yeah, federal, yes. If you take every province on top of that, we're over 7 to 8 million.
It's crazy. And
if you factor in, our country is government workers.
Yeah, if out of 40 million people, there's like at least 10%. Like what is it, like 15 million people are employed by the government? It's crazy.
30, 40%,
And importantly, this is an important thing to understand. For every government job, you have to have 3 to 5 private sector workers to pay for that position, right? So if we have 30% of the country working for the government in some capacity, we're effectively insolvent just by the math of how that works, because you have to have tax money from the private sector, from the private sector paying the public sector, right? It is totally broken. It is
welcome to communism,
literally.
That is communism. If you want to break it down to one word, communism is what we're in right now.
Totally.
Right? Because having people that do not create anything, do not develop anything, but just take is communism. And then what's going to happen is you're going to own nothing and you're going to be happy. And then they're going to bring in, the basic income, universal basic income. We're going to give you $2,000 plus your carbon credits, and this is what you're going to have to survive. And here you're going to go into this 15-minute city, and you're going to have this small area where if you kind of go past there, we'll have to realize we're living the Hunger Games pretty soon.
Yeah,
it really is just an accounting trick at the end of the day. We're not creating anything. We're taking the wealth of the nation, and we're consuming it. We're consuming it slowly, and we're doing it while producing nothing of
Have you-
value. And
have you read-
that's what's tragic.
Have you read the Wealth of Nations?
I haven't read The Wealth of
The
Nations.
with Adam Smith, yeah. Awesome.
Have you? Yeah.
Awesome.
I started listening to it when I was traveling, and it was so dense and deep that I was like, my mind really cannot focus on this right now. But there was there was some really good tidbits in there about like how fundamental money and the management of said money is to how society is. Right? When you look at history, there's a couple things that are universal with success. Is that you have a rule of law. You have institutions that are strong. You have a strong currency that everybody trusts. There's the trust in the currency and the institutions that manage it. And you have energy production, right? Energy production is one of the biggest indicators of success. And when you have all of these things going well, you have a really successful economy and country, like we did for the majority of Canada's existence. But when you lose those things, and especially the currency, like the loss of the currency is the single biggest thing that destroys cultures and countries and civilizations. It has happened every single time in human history. Every single culture that has been in the past has been destroyed when their currency collapses, right? And the only currencies that are alive right now is the ones that hasn't happened yet. But there's no reason to believe that won't happen because of mismanagement, because it's happened every single time.
So one of the best books you could ever read, and this is a fantastic, and this is my plug for a book, because Adam Smith has some fantastic ideas. He didn't get everything right, but he got a lot right. The Invisible Hand was something that nobody conceptualized. The idea of how people will do things for their own selfish needs or whatever, but it looks like this invisible hand guiding them to make the right decision. I think you might be breathing into your mic there. That was great, and then things progressed and got even much better understanding of how all of this works. Mises developed theories, the theory of money and credit, and better theories on what Smith was writing about the invisible hand and why that actually functions and why that works, and better understanding of how to predict all of these things. And one of the best books that was ever written and is like the quintessential like first step to get people into reading about economics or understanding it is this one. It's Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt. And it is such a simple, easy read. It's not a big book, and it doesn't have like a lot of mathematics or anything into it. It's very much just like, here's a bunch of concepts to understand. And it's like, once you get that, it's like riding a bike. It literally is the book of how to ride a bike in the world of economics. And once you conceptualize it, you'll never not see it. It's kind of like, those magic eye photographs that are all jumbled things, but like you cross your eyes just right and you get to see the 3D image. It takes you forever to figure out how to do that in the first place. But the second you've got it, you're like, oh, I'll see every image every time I get one of those things. Or
should this actually be a prerequisite for politicians?
Well, I think we have to have some sort of prerequisites for sure.
There's got to be something, right?
Something,
that's the whole thing. Is we don't have that prerequisite. There isn't, the stuff that they're putting them through. Like I saw what they were putting all these new MLA legislatures through, because I was a heavy part of seeing 44 conservative MLAs go to the House, right? And I saw what they were doing, and they had to go through a whole week of learning legislature. And I guarantee you, none of these books, like The Invisible Hand, or the Economics in One Lesson, or The Wealth of Nations, none of those books were a part of the prerequisite. If they had those three there, right?
Well, Wealth of Nations is quite an intense read.
That is an intense read,
and it's not for the faint. It's like I could say. I could say you should read Human Action by Ludwig von Mises, but that's like, it's an economic treatise. It's like, wow, it's a big,
it's a heavy
undertake. Yeah.
But here's the problem: is they don't do anything.
Yeah.
At least something is
well, we had a drama teacher running the country for however many years that was. Like, what are we talking about here?
Well, and you know what? And this is the danger of socialism. Socialism is the surface level understanding of like, can't we all, like, if we all just share, then everything will be great. Like that's their level of economic understanding. And if it sounds like I'm trying to belittle someone who's known as a scholar from like whatever century he was from, Marx, yes, I'm belittling him. And every economist of his time belittled him and degraded him as a charlatan. He tried to have an economic treatise and then he turned it into a political ideology. That's what happened. And he was just absolutely trash, but it's so basic minded, and it really gets people who don't want to think deeply on these actual issues. And it has a gravitas for simple-minded people and people that are willing to take up arms to do it.
Well, there's
Go ahead.
I'll just be really quick. There's a great saying that if socialists or communists knew anything about economics, they wouldn't be socialists or communists.
Pretty much. So one thing that we're always good at being critical on things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say what we should be talking about right now. Okay, so we know what happened. We know where we're at right now. What do we need to do to change the next 2 to 5 years? What can we do to make things better? What would be if there was ideas that we would have to move forward with, or things for people to get engaged with and do, because we have to give people some form of hope. We can be the naysayers all we want, right? But if we don't, like, if people are sitting down and they're watching, they're listening to us, they're going to ask us, well, what is your plan? What is your idea? What do you want to see for the future? How do you want to see changes? What should be done to change where we're at, and what would be the trajectory where we got to go? And that's the one thing that we should always be able to finish off with stuff like that, so we can have discussions on what a better future would be and how do we get there.
Well, I like to get people excited. In fact, that's a great way to do things. You get excited, you get people excited on the fact that things can change and things can go in the right direction. I really like Breitbart, the late great Breitbart. He correctly noted that, politics is downstream of culture. So you really need to capture the culture. And if you can do that, see, this is the thing. In British Columbia, as you correctly pointed out, Dominic, earlier in the show, BC has the culture to do this. They want these things. So what do we have to do to bring this about? Well, we just have to bring it closer to what it was that almost won Rustad the premier seat.
The desire is there.
The desire is absolutely there. So this is something to be very positive about. What we need to do is find a way to figure out how to get rid of these, weed out these political parties of these people that are going to come in and say, well, we need to maybe go a little left of where we're at to get popularity. No, the popularity is actually on the right. The popularity is in the grassroots. The popularity is in what people are actually talking about. I'm tired of the rainbow flags. When they say, well, maybe we should adopt the rainbow flags and just have like a different rainbow. How about we just get rid of the rainbow flag and then accept the fact that people want rid of the rainbow flag? How about that? And how about people are just like unapologetic about this native issue? Like, I don't want my land to be taken from me. This is a huge issue. And if people... And that's the thing you got to fight for. And I'm sorry, but you don't have, like, Lindsay Shepherd was let go from Rustad. That was the last straw for a lot of people, right? Like, Lindsay Shepherd had gone through a lot in her collegiate career. And then, with her run-ins for just happening to mention Jordan Peterson as a student teacher, and that she was raked through the coals for that. And then she gets hired in from the Conservative Party, and she mentions on her personal Twitter that it was offensive that they changed everything into this like native thing in the legislature when that shouldn't have even been there. It's about other things. And then she gets booted from the party, like a couple of weeks before giving birth to her child. Like that's we need to get rid. That's what we need to weed out of the party. That's what needs to be weeded out, is this kowtowing to bullshit. And when people, and absolutely, like if you did that and you spread the message that we're done kowtowing, it's over. The kowtowing's done. We're unapologetically for the people of the province. And if you don't like that, we're probably not the party for you. And seriously, just say that, and you'll have thousands of people lining up to sign petitions or come on board and be a part of your thing. And we'll say, like you say, yeah, I'm not object to talking to everybody, but if you don't like our ideas, we're not gonna kowtow to you if you browbeat us.
Yeah,
we'll listen to you, but we're not gonna listen to this BS that everybody's been listening to for decades now.
There's a tenet in marketing, because I come from a marketing background, that good marketing brings the people that align with you closer to you and pushes away people that you don't want. Right. So good marketing and good ideas that you properly represent should bring the people that are aligned with those ideas. Right. You're not. And there's an idea of politics in politics that you have to compromise on everything to get enough people to push things through. But there's some things that should be very easy to get through, like Western values, rule of law, low crime, like very basic stuff that like somehow we've gotten to the total opposite of that. Right. So it should be fairly easy to be like, hey, you like less crime, don't you? Great, cool, we like that too. You like Western values, don't you? Cool, we like that too. But like we don't have to compromise those basic fundamentals that we care about just to get votes. Just don't, because most people, when they hear that, and Carney is actually a good example of that, because he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm so Canadian, elbows up for Canada," blah blah blah. Even though it was a total lie, it's still that's what people connected with. I'm Canadian, I like that. Hell yeah. Like there still is that that sentiment inside of people, even though it doesn't come out very well.
The one thing that people forget to do is they forget to listen to conversations that are happening around them.
Mm-hmm.
This is the one thing I find. You go to the grocery store. Like, I guess I'm one of those people that listen to all people around. And you can actually find commonalities in people you wouldn't even think you had commonalities with. And if you could find those 5 things or 4 things in common with somebody, even one thing in common, and have that conversation, right? Talk about affordability. Everybody's having affordability issues, right? Everybody's having issues with education. Okay, yeah, we'll sell gold and silver. That's our thing, right? But I'm kidding, that. But if you think about education, we're always talking about how there's problems with education. You can even get the people that come from the left side of the spectrum, right? And I hate this left and right side, but we have to call left and right. I like calling it right and wrong, but who gets to decide what's right, what is wrong? But if we think about it, we have economics as an issue, education is an issue, affordability is an issue. We have jobs are an issue. So everybody's always talking about we have problems. You talk to people at the fuel tank, you're pumping gas. How many times do you talk to the person that's in the beside you? Right? Everybody's complaining. Our price of fuel is so high. Why are we having this problem when we have our own oil? Why are we not refining our own oil? Why are we buying LNG from Australia? Why are we not doing all these different things? Have these conversations to find things that are in common and find a path forward, because there is going to be people, and unfortunately, we have a party system right now where you've got NDP, you've got conservatives, you've got liberals. I hate the party system. I wish we would just have a system where everybody was representing the people of their ridings. It went back to a system where we had independent representation like they have up in the Northwest Territories. They don't have parties. They have independent people, and then they come together in their own legislature. They make these rules, these laws that people are going to adhere to, and it's not based on ideology. It's not based on party colors. It's not, I call them gang colors. We need to take a look at it where we have to have individuals that are representing the people that voted them in and bringing their voices back to where they're supposed to be. Whether it's going to be through economics, whether it's be through jobs, whether it's being through food, education, all these different things. We need people to represent what happens in their collective areas. The problem is we have most of our of our legislature people are in the lower mainland, and they're in such a small confined area. When you looked at how things were done during the election, the whole province was as blue could be, and then the small little areas in Vancouver is where
And Victoria.
everything Victoria, Vancouver, and it's like such a small smidgen of the province, and the rest of the province is all blue. And we still had we still had the NDP taking that government. And it's like, what is going on? All of these people in all of these rural areas where all the land is, where all the resources are, where all the jobs are being created, don't actually have a say, because everybody in these urban areas that are so compacted, these urban areas close to the ocean, get to have the say. And it's so bad, the representation that we have. So if we can figure out a system where we can actually have it where it's going to have more proper representation for the landmass that we have and not for the population, I think that would be a better system, because we need to go back to the people that are producing. We go back to this whole conversation we had. People that are producing have, they should have a little bit more say than the people that are consuming.
Yeah,
Right?
and that's actually a really good point, Tom. And what you're kind of speaking to is what's necessary. And people have asked, well, what's the solution? What's the next step? The next step and what's necessary is a reforging of the West. There's a book called The Decline of the West by Oswald Spengler that basically explains the seeds of destruction of all civilizations and societies because of how they were designed and how they're set up, right? So the seeds of our destruction were sown a century ago, right? And the only way to avoid that inevitability is to reforge with current knowledge, right? So what's necessary for specifically BC right now, but Canada and the wider West as well, is that it needs to be reforged. So our systems have failed us. Our institutions have failed us. Well, they need to be remade then. They need to be rebuilt. They need to be reforged, and something better needs to take its place. And the only way that that's possible is by organization and mobilization of the people that are supposed to be represented. Because if you're not represented, well, you have to change the representative. If the system isn't representing you, you need to upgrade the system. That is the only way out of the predicament that we were in. There is nothing else other than collapse.
Well, we could go on all night. We absolutely could, but we're going on. We're past the 2-hour mark, and I told you guys the timeline for how long the live stream would go. I want to give everybody the invite to come out to the Discord server where a lot of us are going to be chatting afterwards. I always join in. These guys are welcome to join in. Maybe choose. If not,
I'm covered. I gotta get dinner.
yeah. That's the thing. These guys are busy guys, and thank you so much for joining in, both of you. I'll be remiss if I don't plug the merchandise for the show, for the channel, for everybody. The merch. So if you choose and you like to, if you love this hat, we have this available on the store. Canada is up for grabs. The up for grabs shirt. You can also get the matching shirt. That's the I'd grab that. That's the I'd grab that shirt with the of course, you know what Donald Trump likes to grab. And we got a Pink Canada on the shirt. I love that design. It's one of my favorites, as well as the one that fits this video so much. Absolutely. Inflation equals theft. It is theft, and it is what
theft of your savings.
It's the theft of your savings. They've taxed your money already, but they're taxing it again and again and again and again all the time. As long as you have the currency, they're taxing it and they're taking it away from you. So big shout outs to Dominic and Bryce. Thank you so much for joining tonight. If you haven't already, make sure that you've clicked getting a screenshot of this so you guys can get in touch with Bryce later.
There's a link underneath the video as well.
There's a link. There's always a link in the description of the video every time. So screen grab this. That makes it easy so you can get that QR code and share it with your friends. And head on over to New World Precious Metals. Get yourself hooked up, because it's the best way to basically save your savings. Save your savings from the government that's basically doing that inflation is theft thing and stealing all the money that you have. Dominic, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been a pleasure. We'll have you back on again. I mean, Every time. You've got so much more to add to the conversation. We've got another one in here at the end from Drew Coover. Hey, he came up in the chat earlier. Drew Coover for $10.
Tribe. The Sheboygan Tribe.
That's a new logo. I like it, man. Look at the new logo that Drew Coover has. I love it. It looks like a sports team sort of thing. Drew Coover for $10.
Eh?
Was that?
He's had that for a while.
I didn't realize that. I always just I assumed it was just this beautiful face with the giant mullet that he's got. Buy us a coffee next time we go for one. Absolutely. Speaking of which, on the merch store, there is coffee available as well. The best coffee British Columbia has to offer. It's and I give the chef's kiss to that. My good friend Yuji, he makes the coffee, and that's where we're at with that. So go check that out. Make sure you've clicked all the links, and you know everybody. I gotta plug your Twitter, Dominic.
Yeah,
because
no Twitter, Facebook, Substack.
Get on over there. Make sure that you're following Dominic. How do you pronounce your last name?
Cinelli, Dominic Cinelli.
Cinelli.
C-I in Italian is ch. CH is c. Like Chianti is CH.
My rule of thumb is don't try. And,
that whole thing. We elect citizens, not politicians. That's what we should be looking at, right?
Absolutely.
We should be looking at, bringing the best people up that we can. I want to give you an idea for one of your next shirts you can put on your merch.
Okay.
Stop being so disgusting.
Stop being so disgusting. Yeah. All right.
Because everybody's being disgusting. Politicians are being disgusting. People that are calling people names and not trying to have conversations are being disgusting. So stop being disgusting. Right? Because that's the thing, is people are being that way. They're not loving their neighbor. They're not looking after people. And I just think that it would be something that people would turn around. I want to get one of those 51 shirts, to be honest.
Well, I'll make it available for you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love that one. I love that one because thing is unfortunately that's what maybe lost Pierre the party election, was that whole 51st state from Trump, right? And Carney when Carney just jumped on that thing going, oh wow.
People get so butthurt over it. It's a joke, folks. It's a joke. We don't want you.
Well, here's the reality.
We don't want you.
but this is the reality, right? Canada only has a couple options, right? If we can get our stuff together, right? Option one, which is probably not going to happen because of who's in charge. You've got America takes us over. You got China takes it over. You got India takes us over. You got the WAF takes us over. Somebody is taking control of our resources and people. And if it's not going to be us, it's going to be somebody else. Well,
but it's going to be the United States with my prediction is the balkanization of Canada, and some of the provinces will become their own countries that are under control, and others will become territories like Puerto Rico. What was the best one that I heard, because we were trying to come up with a nickname for it, was Coldo Rico or Colder Rico.
That's funny.
That's the best. That's the best. Colder Rico, the territory that cannot vote in American elections. That's what I got for you folks tonight. Thank you guys. Bryce, Gay, Dominic, thank you so much. We'll see you guys on the next one. Stay on the line, and I'll talk to you in a second here. But good night, everybody. We'll see you all in the Discord. The link is in the chat right there.